Okay, let people join, but all of you guys who have joined, okay, let me ask some simple questions, right? No need to panic. Very simple question. If you understand them, if you know it, answer me. And guys, again, before I get started, see, if I will tell you to develop an application, right? Then you're gonna be writing your application in your way, right? By following all the best practices. And if I, as another developer, if I'm gonna look at your code, at least for 2 days or 3 days, I'll take to understand your code, right? The way you have developed it. So in case something is not making sense when we are going through the Spring Security Framework in the first time, that is absolutely fine. Because someone else has written those code, we are just using it, right? It's not like, we are developing something from scratch, like the way we do for all the modules. In Spring Security, we are basically looking into their code and trying to have a grasp on that, and we're using it. So obviously, it will take you some time. What I don't want you to do to mug up the things. What I don't want you to do to follow up people like me directly, like, I'll be coding like this, so you have to code like this as well. No, understand why you are writing, even that one function you are writing, why you are writing that, okay? And that will make you confident eventually. Okay, so today is going to be an important day because I'm going to be showing you a few more things, and once we'll be jumped to boot in the next week, it will make so much of differences and you're going to be feeling a lot more comfortable. So after tomorrow, the 4 or 5 days break that you're going to be getting, utilize it by practicing all these particular things that we are discussing. Okay, but let's come back to my question. Okay, I will show you something. I have written this config file of Spring Security. We have done some blah 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 thing. I want to drag your attention to this. Why we have written this annotation? Anyone? I'm just asking. Why we have written this annotation? Only this annotation. See this part. Enable web security. What this is doing?
Usage of delegating filter.
Delegating filter?
Delegating.
Okay. What is the exact thing it does? Like in one line. Yeah, whatever you understand. Okay, something it is doing with respect to the delegating filter proxy. Okay, accepting that answer. Any specific answer? Yeah, Digna? Yeah, Rakesh?
It is telling that we are enabling security in our project.
We're enabling security in our project. And what do you mean by enabling security, Rakesh? Like how we are enabling security in Spring Framework? By doing what? By activating some what? Filters, right? So yeah, Digna, you have an answer for this annotation? Enable web.
Enabling filters.
Enabling Spring Security filters. Is there any name for that filters? Is it one filter or many filters we're activating?
Many filters.
Many filters. And what are those many filters combiningly? What we are saying them?
Spring Security Filter Chain.
Bang on. Spring Security Filter Chain. Okay. So from your answer, starting from Vijay. Vijay said, okay, this annotation has something to do with the delegating filter proxy. Well, I told you guys that whenever we are starting the initializer, this initializer class that we have written, internally it will create a bootstrap the Spring Boot application and create some delegating filter proxy. And this class basically trying to create a bean for something. And whenever this class is getting started, it is looking for like this class, let's say, whenever we are starting this class or the delegating filter proxy, whatever the request is first come to that. Whenever that is starting, it is internally looking for a Spring Security filter chain. So Vijay, with respect to your understanding, you are okay. It is looking for a Spring Security filter chain. But we are actually creating the Spring Security filter chain by writing this annotation, right? So as Digna said, we are going to activate some filters whenever we are writing this annotation. What kind of filters? Some chains of filters, as Bhagya said, like some chains of filters we're going to be having. Okay, so and also I have told you in this annotation, internally they have written some configuration file And inside this configuration file, if you're gonna go, and even if you're gonna go to that annotation, enable web security, the one that we have used on top of our class, if you go to the up, and if you want to read their documentation, add this annotation to a configuration class to have Spring security configuration defined in any web security configure. We'll understand what the heck this is, but more likely by exposing a security filter chain bean. So whenever you are activating your Spring security filter chain by writing this annotation, this is an annotation. Internally, it is basically creating a bean. If you're going to scroll down, here they are creating some bean. No need to understand the code for now. We're going to be coming back to this method. But yeah, Spring security filter chain, they have a method. It is returning a filter object. Okay. And what kind of filter it is returning? You understand this. You read the documentation. Return the filter that represents the Spring security filter chain. And what is the bean they are creating? What is the bean name? Click on this default name, and the bean name is Spring security filter chain. So you guys are absolutely right with your answers. Okay, cross check. We just cross checked with the internal implementation that they have done. We do have nothing to do with that, but yeah, just for understanding's sake. Okay, cool. Next question. How will you, okay, let me first minimize everything. How will you represent an user in Spring security? Anyone? How will you
User details, it is an interface. Actually.
User details is the interface actually. Okay, that's good. And user class, Digna said. Digna, can you differentiate the difference between the user class and the user details interface? For your understanding's sake, if you have missed yesterday's session, I'm just opening the diagram that we have done. Yeah, can anyone explain this diagram? What do we mean by this? Yes.
User details is an interface which contains a username, password, authorization, and account enabled, all those details.
Okay.
Spring itself having an implementation class for that user details interface user.
Perfect.
Or else we can extend implement the user details interface.
Yes.
In our own class.
Exactly. Exactly. So Spring has a core implementation to store all the user related information. Let's say I have a user called Digna. Then what is Digna's password? What is her username? What kind of roles or authorities, like whether she's an admin or user or whatever roles or authorities she has, and all her account related information, like whether Digna user is activated, whether his password is valid or not valid. All kind of a user detail kind of information I'll be storing inside this user details interface. And obviously this is an interface. So I can create any of my class and can implement this interface and can override all this method and can give it an implementation. But Spring people has shown some mercy to us, and they have created a class called user by overriding all this method. They have given their implementation. So we can use this class directly to create users in Spring security, which is good. Okay. Bang on. All right. Next question. Okay, you told me about the user details and user interface. Okay, next question. How do you store? Okay, what do you mean by roles or authorities in Spring security? What do you mean by whatever understanding you have? No worries. What do you mean by roles or authorities in Spring security? What do you mean by that? Yes?
Level of access.
Access. Okay, what do you mean by access and why do you need it, Digna?
Different users having different level of access in our application.
Okay.
To provide the access we are using.
Okay, different users having different level of access in our application. That's fine. Anybody wants to explain this sentence a little more? Guys, anyone? Yeah, Rakesh, if you want to go ahead with this. The roles or yeah.
So we might have few users who visit our application.
Okay.
So we can't grant all the access to all the users. So there might be some users who are just simple users. There might be someone who is admin.
Yes.
So according to that, we have to segregate that which role has to be assigned to which user.
Okay, so we are basically restricting the user access by giving them some specific roles. Like, okay, I have a user, let's say I have a user called Anju. Anju is just an user. She is not a customer to my website. But let's say Anil. Anil is a customer. Akhil is an admin. Okay, Rakesh is an editor, right? So we can define different types of roles. Okay, let's say you guys are all my customers. You are not users in my website. If I'm gonna show you my website, the way I implemented the website that you guys are using right now, for all the couple of websites that I have, for you guys, I have defined the role as customers because you have purchased the course from me, right? You purchased my Spring Boot course or microservices course or my backend development course, and you have paid me money. So you guys are my customer, right? You have more access than a normal user who is visiting my website. Okay, so that kind of thing we can do it over here. Okay, one last question. Okay, the question is how to define roles or authorities for an user in Spring Security. Anybody remember that class? I'm not forcing you to remember it. I'm just asking. I will show you this again. If anyone wants to explain me this guy. Yes, anyone? Just explain this diagram, please. Yes? Yes, Srinivas.
Create roles.
Yeah, so can I use the granted?
Authority is an interface which is having one implementation called simple granted authority, where you have add role, create role method, something like that. Some methods will be there.
Yeah, otherwise we can just use it inside the constructor only. We can pass in the role, admin, user, or whatever. Don't worry about the name, guys. You can write anything. Instead of admin, you can write ADMMINNN, right? That's fine. You have to stay consistent with your role. You as a developer have to think, okay, in my application, what kind of application I'm building. Okay, for me, I'm selling courses. Okay, so people will come who are going to be my paid users. People are going to come who are going to learn from my free courses. People are going to come who are just simply going to visit my website. People are come who are going to work for me and manage my websites. So there are 4 or 5 different types of role are also there for my website that I'm managing. Okay, so I have defined the role accordingly. Let's say you are writing some credit card website, right? So you will have different types of customers like silver customer, premium customer, platinum customer, basic customer, right? The roles are just ideas, thoughts. You just need to make sure whenever you are developing your application, you have to come up with the roles and you have to stay consistent with your role with your development. Okay, like during your development time. Okay, cool. We are good. We are warmed up. Let's just get started. We have done some coding yesterday, but don't worry, I will be just commenting out everything. I'll be commenting out everything, okay? Because I will not be coding in this style today. I'm gonna use some other way of coding right today. So I've commented out everything. Let me bring my code all the way to down. So you just have to understand one thing, that we have a class called Spring Security App Config, and this is my configuration class. Here we are enabling Spring Security Filter Chain. So if I'm going to do Control S and if I'm going to be starting my application, a bunch of filters will stand in front of my resources and going to be protecting my resources. I have not written any code inside this class, but this class is going to protect all my resources because by default I have that annotation web security, enable web security, which is going to protect all my endpoint behind the scene. Even I cannot access any of the endpoint that I have in my application. All those resources has been protected, as you can see, and is basically giving me a login page to access them. Okay, cool. So guys, what I'm going to do today, you know that to log in, I will be needing some user. Yesterday, I have told you how to create user in some way, but today I'm going to use a standard way that we'll be using in our Spring and Spring Boot projects, right? Cool. So let's just get started. What I'm going to do right now, let me write some methods. Let's say public void set of role, okay, just for now. And here, set of users. I'm going to be setting up some users from my application. But today, I'll be using a, let's say, set up some users. Let's say I want to create 2 users for my application. Let's say the first user is Akhil, second user is, let's say, Anil. Okay, 2 user I want to create for my application. Okay, so I told you how to create users. You said like I can use the user class. I can use the class called user. One second, user, this class. I can just do user equal to new user, and I can pass in the username, password, and the kind of roles they have inside the constructor right over here. Let's say the username is something, the password is something, and this is how I can create users, and I can define my roles over here as well. There is another approach to this, which is a standard one. So as I told you guys, you can do something like this. User, this is the class to create users in Spring Security. And now you can use a builder pattern. You can use this builder to create or to build users, or directly also you can write like this with username. Let's say I want to create a user called Akhil, and then his password. Then I'm going to write password, and then let's say his password is, let's say, Akhil again, and then the roles, and I can just write role. As you can see, it is taking a var arg inside the parameters, so I can define multiple number of roles that he has for my application. Let's say he is an admin of my application. He's also the user of my application. I have given him 2 access. He can be an admin, and also he has the user access, and there we go. So I have this user, and if I want, let's say right now, if I'm going to handle the return type, do control-1, assign statement to a new local variable. It is giving you a user builder object. So what I'm going to do, on top of this user builder object that it is returning, I'm going to use this method called build. If I'm going to write this method called build, see what it is going to return me? User details. User details means what? User details means your core user details, the interface that I have told you guys, which is the core interface that we have. So we are creating the user class object right now and assigning it to the superclass interface, which is possible in Java, right? So right now, if I'm going to do control-1, assign statement to a new local variable, look at that. I have the user details, let's say for Akhil user. Okay, good. So now I have this bunch of methods, and this is the password, this is the roles that I have defined, and this is the build method. So this is cool, isn't it? The much thing that we have done yesterday, like creating the users by doing like this. Here I have created the user, and then I have created some roles for him like this, right? Using using the simple granted authority. And then I have to do this much of things to create a user. Right now, it's very simple, right? So there we go. Can you help me to create another user? Anyone? Let's say Anil user, what to do if I want to create the Anil user using the builder method? Guys, anyone, if you want to help me? Yes?
User details.
User details. Let me just write one second. User details. Let's say Anil user. Yeah, then
Anil user.
yes.
User dot
with
username.
Let's say username will be, let's say Anil. Okay.
Dot password.
Let's say Anil. Yes.
Roles.
Roles. Yeah. Let's say I'll be giving him a user role only, and then I have to do build method, right? Cool. So let me just bring it like this so that it will be easy to your eyes to read all this thing. Look at all this thing. Now see guys, I told you if you're gonna click on this build method, you can see there is a method called build. Oh, sorry, where is that? Okay, 1 second. Okay, yes, there is a method called, come on man, there is a method called build which returns a user details inside. So you have a class called user. This is your class called user. Inside this user, this implements the user details. User details has all the get authorities, get password, get username, and I think Digna was explaining account, non-expired, all the account related information we are storing inside this. We have the implementation, which is the user. We can create a user by calling the constructor of user.
right? And we can set the mandatory thing like username, password, and the roles. Rest of the things is not mandatory. Even if you are not setting it, something has been done through the constructor, which the user interface calling behind the scene, and inside that constructor they are storing all the other stuff, right? We don't have to worry about that. Now, if you're going to scroll down in your user class, you're going to be seeing that there is another class should present inside it. One second, I'll show you. One second. I think, is that changed in Spring Security? One second. Use public user builder. One second, guys, just give me a minute. See. Right now we are inside the user class, right? Inside the user class, they have another class called UserBuilder class, right? This class is created for us to make us comfortably create users, something like this. It's very simple, right? See this code, how clean is this? So they have a class called UserBuilder, right? If I'm gonna go into the user class, inside there they have a static inner class called UserBuilder, and they have a method called, build. So if you're gonna see here, they have a method called build. Inside this build method, we can call this build method of the UserBuilder class to get this user detail subject, right? And what this build method is doing internally, it is simply calling your user constructor over here. So whatever the details that you are giving to the build, internally it is taking all these things like username, password, like whatever parameter. We are just giving three things here, right? We are giving username, password, and roles. It is collecting those things over here. Inside, internally it is collecting all these things and calling the user class constructor, passing the things like the username and password. Password is being encoded internally, and then rest of the things, it is the setting the default value, and also whatever the roles we are providing, it is also capturing it, and then calling the user class constructor, which is this one, right? So same thing, this user class constructor was also be called by our constructor that we have used yesterday internally. So both the builder method, this build method is doing the same thing internally that you used to do yesterday by yourself. So cool. So now we have two user objects over here, which is really nice. Okay, so if anyone asks you about the user builder class which is present inside the Spring Security, just remember that this is another class provided to you to build user efficiently, because I have seen people ask this question in the interview. So just like in your user class, you have different things like password, username, authorities, and account expired or non-expired, user enabled, and all the other stuff. And to create user, you have a couple of constructors that we have used previously. Just like that, if you're gonna scroll down or if you're gonna search for something called UserBuilder, then you should have another static class present inside the user class only, which is the inner class, which has the exact same variables like the user, okay, like username, password, authorities, account expired, account disabled, and the other stuff. But you can see over here the documentation. It is going to help you to build an user, and the minimum requirement is you have to pass an username and a password and the authorities, and it should be provided. Okay, the remaining attributes have reasonable defaults. That means these three things need to be provided, and rest of the things can be added as default if you are not specifying these properties, right? That will be done internally. And the next thing you have to learn that whenever you are calling the username method or the password method, you can see whenever you call this username method, you are providing the username over here. First of all, they're doing a check, and like the assert things are used to check things in Java. So using this line, they're checking whether the username is null. Let's say if you are calling this method and you are not passing the username, then this will be the error you're going to be getting, like username cannot be null. And if you're passing the username, they are setting the username. You can see this dot username. That means with this username, they are setting the username, whatever you are passing. Like that, whenever you call the password method, giving a password, first of all, they are doing a validation check. If the password is not null, if null, then this is the exception will be triggered. Otherwise, the password will be set to the user builder password variable that we have over here. And finally, after setting everything, whenever you are setting the role, you can see whenever you are defining the roles by giving this roles things, it is taking everything just the way we have done previously. It is creating a array list of granted authority and iterating over the array that we are passing using this roles method and iterating all our roles that we are given, and it is inserting like one by one to this authorities right over here. Okay, and you can see it is just keep on adding authorities.add it is doing and creating a new simple granted authority and adding the role that you are giving. You can see it is prefixing something as role underscore. We'll be understanding what do you mean by that, but in as simple as that, it is just taking all your roles from the array and iterating those roles and adding it to this authorities list, which is a list of granted authority they're creating behind the scene. Okay, and just like that, whenever you finally call the build method, right, it does what? It is collecting the username from this dot username, which is the username that you have set. Whenever you call this username method, you collected the username, set it to this dot username, which is this guy. So this will have the value right now. So it will paste the value from username, paste the value from password, and this is the thing it is doing over here. You can see this build method is fetching the username and putting it inside the user constructor. So this constructor they are calling behind the scene. Whenever the build method we are calling, they're internally doing the same thing that we have done yesterday. And the password they have encoded right over here in the line number 5 or 6. Right, you can see password encoder. They're doing some apply things. We will understand what is this. We don't need to bother. Like the password they are collecting and they're encoding and they're storing it over here and using it in the password parameter inside our user constructor. And like that, other stuff they're assigning it to some default value. Right now, the disabled, account expired, and all this variable they are setting it to some default value. And they're also giving the authorities that we'll be getting whenever we'll be calling this user constructor. So the build method is helping you to call the user constructor behind the scene and helping you to create the user object. And this is a famous builder pattern that we have in Java. So nothing to learn more about it. So just remember, this is helping you to create the user object in an efficient way. Okay. I hope this makes sense. So how to store this user inside memory? Anyone? I have two users right now, which is cool. Akhil user and In-memory user details manager I have to use to store the user into the memory. First, let me just do the coding, then I'll ask you. Okay, in-memory user details manager class I will be creating this class object. So I can do in-memory user details manager. This is like a service class of our Spring Security, which is going to provide the create user method, right? Like it is going to provide create user, delete user, update user, all this like a service class that the Spring Security has written for me. That class it is providing. So I can just write right now I want to create some user in my application. I can just do create user. I can just do Anil user, and I also want to create Akhil user. So I'll just change it to Akhil user. That's it. And then I can return this guy over here. So return this user details manager over here. And right here, I have to do one more thing. Right now inside this method called setup user, I'll be returning this class that I am returning right now, this object that I am returning. Copy the class name, come over here, paste it over here, make it a bean, and there you go. And maybe instead of setup user, you can just say it anything, but setup user is also fine, right?
So now this is the thing that we have created. Let me format my code a little bit so that it will be good to your eyes. Create a couple of user. Now instead of this doing this thing, I can also make it more simplified. Like I can directly return this object right here. Okay, this is also good. And all this you can see InMemeoryUserDetailsManager, this constructor that we are calling. I think there is another constructor. See, another constructor, same class constructor we have, which takes a bunch of users object inside the constructor. So we can use this, right? So we can come to this. Instead of calling the default constructor, I will take more. I will take my user details object that I have. Akhil user and Anil user is a user details object. I can pass this object directly inside this constructor like this. Akhil user and Anil user. Yes. And I will remove all this thing. Yes.
In memory means where it is storing.
Exactly. Good question. We're going to be seeing that right now, Bhagya. But let me just see that whether it is working.
It is not database, right?
It is not database. Right now, in memory means it is just storing inside your server memory. I'm going to be showing you the
H2.
No, not in S2. It is simply creating a array list behind the scene or a map behind the scene.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, and inside that only it is storing. I'll be showing you the code also, Bhagya, not a problem. Now let's just see whether it is working or not. So I'll be coming to this. Let's just say hi. It is just prompting me this screen, and I'm gonna say Akhil user I have created. Akhil is there in the call? Yes, right? Akhil, see your name is coming by default.
Yes.
Okay. See, your name is coming by default in the right here. It's in the suggestion. Akhil and Akhil. Okay, now we have this problem. So anybody from yesterday's class can understand this problem and tell me why we're having this problem? See the exception.
PasswordEncoder.
Password encoder. What do you mean by the password encoder? What I'm missing inside my application? Yes.
We have to encode and put the password.
We have to use no.
So why should I encode the password? I'm putting my password like this. What is the problem? Yeah.
Abhilash,
Yeah.
if you put the password like this, so in the array list wherever it is showing the user,
Yes.
the plain text will be saved. So
Exactly.
that's like vulnerable for anyone to
Sure.
see and use it.
Sure. So that we will be using over here a class called password encoder. I have shown you this class, shown you this interface yesterday. It has a method called encode, which will be used internally by Spring Security to encode our password. So we have a few implementation given by Spring Security. The one that we have used yesterday called NoopPasswordEncoder. So this bean you have to create, right? So you can go over here to your main class right over here, and you have to create the password encoder bean like this, password encoder, and you have to create the object for no password encoder. The no password encoder doesn't have a constructor, so you cannot create object like new no password encoder. Rather, it is a singleton design pattern. You can just do no password encoder dot get instance. That's it, and you can just write it as a bean. And there you go. No password encoder is not recommended to use it in production. But we are saying, okay, we are willing to store our password as a plain text in our server. So it doesn't matter because we are just learning Spring Security. So not a problem. So now if you're going to go over here and let's just try to log in again. And I'm writing Akhil and Akhil over here. I am able to log in. Yes, I can log in all my endpoints right now, which is good. And also by default, we are also having an endpoint which is created by Spring Security called /logout. If I want to log out from this and I want to log in as Anil user, I can also log in like Anil over here. And with Anil user also I am login. I can use all my endpoints which are secured, and I can just do logout to go out of this. And if I'm going to log in with Abhilash right now, will I be able to log in with Abhilash? This user? No, I have not created this user. Bad credential, right? So Spring Security created this beautiful page over here, which is right now having all the default implementation, which is good, right? I wanted to say you something, then I forgot. Suddenly two thoughts came into my mind and I forgot everything. Okay, first thought. Okay, let me just ask you this question. How this page is getting created? this page is getting created. Which filter is creating this page in your? I'm printing.
Default login page generating filters.
Default login page generating filter, like that you can see default logout page generating filter. Now you can understand there are two filters which are helping you for login and logout functionality, which is good. But okay, yeah, one more thing that I want to do. If I'm going to remove this password encoder, okay, I can also do something without that password encoder also I can do something simple like this. I think let me just check whether it is working. Before Akhil, I want to store his user details, I want to store his user details, his password. I don't want to, I want to store his password as no op only. I think if I'm going to write this shorthand for no op, I think internally it is going to use the no op password encoder. Even if I'm not having any password encoder being created over here, I think this will work. Let me just check. I haven't tested it with the latest Spring Security version. So I will go over here and let me just try to log in again. Let me just try to access any of my endpoint. Prompting me for this, for Akhil. Okay, enter. Yes, I'm logged in. So now can I just do hello? Yes, I'm able to do it. I'm able to log in. So internally it is using that password encoder and not throwing me that exception, that null exception that we have seen before. Let me just do log out. Okay, I have a question for you right now. If I'm going to log in, let's say I'm going to access hi. If I'm going to log in with Anil, will it throw me an exception or will it will I be able to log in? Look at my code.
It will throw exception.
It will throw exception because before Anil password also we have to use no op, right? Like this. Let's just do Control S and now let's just try to log in with Anil. Okay, I think it is not loaded. So let's just do hi Anil, enter. Yeah, I'm logged in as well with Anil, which is good, right? Perfect. So everything is working good. Everything is working like a charm. So everything is good. And don't worry by looking into this thing. This is not error. This is a call stack. Okay. We're going to be learning what it is. And this thing, Madan or someone was asking yesterday how it is working behind the scene. Some session is getting created by Spring Security behind the scene and a lot of magic is happening. We're going to be learning about them. But yeah, coming back from here. Okay. Where you, yeah, question. Yes.
Here, user details is there in the build method. Go inside build method.
1 second, Anil. I will go into the build method. This is what you were asking. Yes.
Here already they are using password encoder data.
They are not using any password encoder. They are just applying the password encoder that we are basically trying to apply. Inside this apply method, you will see. I will show you something. Apply method. Okay. Let's just go for that later because whenever we'll be discussing the password encoder. Here they are just applying the password encoder that we are choosing, right? Like this .password encoder. You can see this password encoder, the password encoder that we are using. That password encoder it is choosing. Now we have used the no op, so it is going to apply the password encoder, which is no op. Okay, so okay, forget about that, but it is not going to choose anything for you. For an example, Anil, here I do not want to store the data of password like this. Let's say I want to use a BcryptPaswordEncoder. Then I will go to, let's go to online and let's just go to calculator. Okay, and here let me just encode your password. Let's say I'm going to write Anil. This is the plain text. This is the bcrypt version of your password. This is how I'll be storing it in my computer. Remember that once you bcrypt it, once you get the encoded version of this cannot be reversed. So if you're gonna go here, let's say for Anil, this is the password, right? And what kind of password this is? This is a bcrypt password, right? So I think I can write like this. Okay, spelling is correct, right? Yeah. Like that. Akhil password also, let me just bcrypt. Okay, let me use one bcrypt password and one no password just for example. Akhil password also, you can put Akhil name inside that calculator right over here. Let me just do that. Akhil over here, do a calculate, and this is the password. Copy that and go back to your STS, change your password. This means Akhil only, and this is a BcryptPasword password. Copy that, paste it over here, do a Control S. Let's just do a tasting. So I have not created the BcryptPaswordEncoder bean. So right now, if I'll go back to here, and if I'm gonna say hi, okay, let me just log in with Akhil. Sorry, let me just log in with Akhil. Let's just see whether I'm able to log in, and boom, I'm logged in, because right now I have used the BcryptPaswordEncoder. Internally, that mechanism is converting and checking this password whether it is matching with the password that I'm giving. Some logic has been written for this, how this will happen, because this is the shortcut. As I said, if you are not writing this, then you can also write it like the password encoder that we have created before. Let me copy this bin like this, Control C. Let's just go up. Okay, after this, create one more bean for password encoder, uncomment everything, and this password encoder is going to return a bcrypt password encoder, because the password that we are storing right here and right here, these are bcrypt passwords, so no password will not work. So I can just do new bcrypt password encoder. I think this will work right now. If you're going to do Control S, even if I'm not specifying bcrypt over here, I think this should also work for me. So if I'm going to go over here, let's just have another check. Let's just say hi. Okay, first let me log out. Okay, now it's anyhow, the code was not reloaded before. Let me just check with Akhil. Akhil, and oh, any problem? Okay, hi, hello, it's working. Let me just do log out once. Okay, I'm logged out. Let me log in again using Akhil, AKHIL. Okay, I'm logged in right now. It's working good, right? So it is working because the password encoder that I have used right now, bcrypt password encoder, this guy knows how to deal with this kind of password whenever we are storing our password like this. So if I'm gonna go to if you're gonna go to your password encoder, this interface, if you're gonna do here you have a method called encode and matches. Encode method is going to be used for encoding the password. Matches method will be used to matching your password whenever you are logging in. So right now, if you're going to go to any of the implementation, let's say I have an implementation like bcrypt password encoder. This is the one that I'm using. So here, if you're going to go over here, do Control-O, they have a match method, and here they have written their logic. Now, the way we are giving our raw password and the encoded password, and they're doing some logic. We're going to be seeing that later, but this is the method which has the logic, how the comparison will be done, and how Spring Security is knowing whether I'm entering a right credential and whether it is matching with this user or not. Okay, with this little bit of idea you got, guys, little bit of ideas like yes, Tigna.
Who is encoding this password actually? In normal, we won't use any encoder.
Exactly. In normal, you'll have whenever you'll have a registration form. Basically, now we are creating other user directly over here. In normally we don't have it, right? Normally it will be something like this. Let's say I'll go to Selenium Express. Okay, I'll go to this website. Okay, I will go to the login. Okay, to log in first the user need to create some credential. I'll go to register. Once you put the password over here, right, this password will capture in our front end code, and then maybe this password will capture, and then behind the scene we have to convert this with the code using the encode method of this. Let's say you have a form like this. Somebody is giving you the password, right? So you will be capturing these details, right? And let's say you have a password encoder like this. Okay, in your code, you will have the password encoder, right? And let's say you have a bcrypt password encoder, it is already created. So in your controller code, what you will do, you will take this password encoder and you're going to do password encoder dot encode. Then whatever the user has given the password, capture it. Let's say some data you are capturing the user password from the front end, and then pass it over here. Now, okay, so anyhow, this is not working because I think the encode method will take a string.
So imagine this is a string password, string data you are capturing from the form, and then this is going to get you a bcrypt, the encoded version of that particular string. And this thing you can do it in a controller whenever you are capturing the data from the front end. Okay, Digna? But we're going to be doing that. We'll be creating some kind of registration form like this. And we're going to be doing that things by ourselves. We're going to be writing this code in our controller, but for now we are just doing everything by ourselves. We are hard coding the user. This will never be the case in real time. You will be capturing the user details from the front end, right? We're going to be writing some applications like that shortly. So far things are making sense, Digna?
Yes.
Okay. One last question. I'll be answering this before I'll be moving further. The question Bhagya has asked me. She asked, okay, Vilas, whenever you are storing this data, Akhil and Anil, where this data is getting stored, okay? Look at the internal implementation. Click on this in-memory user details, okay? So right here, it is internally calling the create user method. Go into this. It is taking my user, and then look at that. It is doing users.put, and then it is getting my username, and it is creating some new user, and it is putting it inside users.put. Put method it is using. If it is using put method, what will be the user? It will be a map. Click on this and look at this. This has a immutable map. This is a hash map. Inside the hash map, they have the key value pair. Inside the key, they're putting the user information, like the user name. Let's say I'm giving Anil, then the username is Anil, right? So they're putting Anil and the user related information, like all the user related information. Now you might say, okay, Vilas, what is this mutable user details? Don't worry about this. I told you, right? We have something called user details. 1 second. We have a main core implementation of the user called user details, right? This is the class which has all this method. What are the implementation I told you? User implementation. But internally, they have one more implementation called mutable user. Mutable user. The user information which can be, there is two things, immutable and mutable. This is a mutable user. That means this information we can change. Let's say some user, let's say Anil user I'm storing, right? I'm giving his username, password, data. Let's say tomorrow he wants to edit his profile, modify his password. Then everything will be updating inside this mutable user. This is another implementation of your user details interface. So you can see mutable user implements mutable user that extends to user details, right? So over here in our diagram, just like user we have another one called mutable user, another implementation, mutable user. Can I just do a little bit of modification like this? And we have another implementation that we found here called mutable user. This is a class. Right now, if you're gonna come over here, so do a control T, you have two implementation. Mutable user is another class. That is the object the class is creating. So from where I came from my security app config, I want to see the internal implementation of InMemeoryUserDetailsManager. When I'm giving my user details object to this guy, internally what it is doing, it is just using a for loop to iterate through all my user details and calling the create user method to create the user information. And inside this create user method, they are simply using a logic. Whatever the username we are giving, that they are storing it as a key. And whatever the user information that we are giving, they're converting to a mutable user object or a user object only. This is another form of user object or a user details object. And they're storing it inside the users. And this users is a map, it's a hash map. They're storing it inside your server. So basically that means that if you want to use InMemeoryUserDetailsManager or this guy, then once you stop your server, all the data that you have, let's say right now, what I'm doing, I'm using this method. So every time I'm calling this guy over here, or every time I'm starting my application, this method is getting called and all the users are automatically getting created. But in real time, this will not happen, right? You will have a registration form from where you will be getting the details, and
If you are storing it inside the in-memory user details manager, then once you stop the server and restart it, obviously everything will be erased from the map. So obviously, whenever you are going to use something like this, a registration form, we're going to be capturing the data and we'll be storing it inside the database. At that time, we will not be using in-memory user details manager. If you're going to be using it instead of database, it will store the data inside the map, right? So once you restart the server, the data will go away, right? So we're going to be using another user details manager, right? And what kind of user details manager that we're going to be using at that time? Let's say user details manager. So right now we are using in-memory user details manager. There is another implementation called JDBC user details manager, which is going to help us to store the data inside the JDBC using the JDBC inside the database. Inside this interface also, we have a create user method. So if I'm going to go to here, look for a create user method, look at that. Here also we have a create user method, but here they're using some JDBC template logic to do some call to store the data into the database. We're going to be using it in our future lessons, but not right now. Okay. So I think this will give you a kind of impression like, what we are doing behind the scene, but yeah, that's it. So far you got a little bit of ideas like what is happening with this couple of methods that we have done. And now you confirm me once, then I'll go to the next thing and we will do some quick walkthrough with the HTTP security things. Yes, please. Any other questions? Cleared with all the questions that you asked? Thanks, Digna.
Yeah.
Yes, Rakesh.
Yeah, so here we are doing the in-memory storage thing. So how many types of security do we have? Like JDBC in-memory?
Like we have one more famous is LDAP. Okay, LDAP, in-memory and database. These are the most frequently used thing. Yes, Bhagyo.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Ask me.
So in real-time scenario, we are not going to use in-memory.
No, we are not going to use it. Think no, Bhagyo. Imagine I have a website, people are logging in, and once I restart my server, there is some maintenance going and I'm restarting my server, and then all the users are gone. It's like, you guys have enrolled in my classes, right? I have stored your user. I have a database. I have stored your details in my database. Imagine I have not stored your details inside the database, and I have stored your details inside a file list, some map or something inside the server only. And today I have a maintenance. I'm telling you guys, time to time, guys, I have maintenance today, right? I have a maintenance. I'm reconfiguring my server and restarting my server. And that time what will happen? Right? All your data will go away. So once you are trying to log in, you are not going to see your courses, your paid courses. Now, then you're going to keep on looking at me like, where this guy is so that I can sue a case on him and drag him to the court. Isn't it? You cannot do something like that. You cannot store the user inside in memory. You have to have a persistent database. And that's why you never have to mess with the production database, which is used for security. I have seen people who have entirely deleted the production database, who have access to the database in my team. We have went through so many challenges. The client will go crazy if something will happen to the database. So you have to make sure the data should go to the database, the user related data, and you also need to have some backup for the database every time, so that in case also there is something fishy is happening, you never can do that kind of thing. Like, you never can delete the user data permanently because it will create a mess and it will impact your business, right? For sure. So yeah, so we'll be storing it in our database very soon. Yeah, so don't worry about it. Yes.
We are using in-memory, LDAP, and one more JDBC, right?
Yes.
These three are Spring provided by default.
Yeah, these three are Spring provided.
Yeah. We need to customize those things as well.
Absolutely, we can customize it. We can create our own user details manager, right? So basically, Anil, is very simple. So I told you guys this thing. Okay, we have something called user details manager. Okay. So user details manager is there. This is the interface. They have all this method. Now they have two implementation. If you want to create your own interface, you want to write a service class which you want to give the implementation for all this method, you can absolutely do it. So basically this is a service class only. Don't worry about it. I'll show you right now. There is one more thing I haven't introduced. See, in-memory user details manager that we are using. Okay. And
this implements user details manager, right? If you're gonna see user details manager has all this method: creating a user, updating a user, deleting a user, change password, and whether the user exists in the database. But where is the load user method? I have told you guys now, here inside the here delete user, update user, create user, and everything is there. Also load user is there. Where is that load user method? Look at this. The user details manager extends to another super interface. This method has only one method. Okay, this interface has only one method, and that method called loadUserByUserName. So if you want to give if you as a developer want to give a functionality to your application, how your user will be loaded, right? Loaded from where? Loaded from database, or loaded from in-memory, or loaded from LDAP, or loaded from any other server, then you have to override it and give it a logic. But you are not writing that, right? We are not overriding this thing. We are not giving the implementation. Whenever we are going to our application here, let's say I'm doing logout here, log out, okay, and if I am giving the details, like let's say Anil and Anil. So don't you think once I do sign in, the Anil's data will be fetched and will be compared first before the application let me log in, isn't it, Anil? So your data will be extracted, your data will be loaded, right? So how your data is getting loaded? Your data should be loaded. So here you can see now this is the method the Spring Security is going to use internally to fetch my data. You're going to see how. See, this method you have, load users by username method, is takes the username and going to load the username to your application. So this is the first interface. This is the second interface which extend that interface. So apart from create, update, delete, change password method, that method also we are inheriting from the parent interface, that load method. That's why I have written over here. Inside the user details manager, all the methods are coming, even including the load method also is coming over here. Okay, now if you want to go to the STS tool one more time, it has some implementation like JDBC user details manager to store the data to the JDBC. In memory we're using right now. If you want to click on this here, let's just see Control O, load user by username. Do we have this method overridden? Absolutely. This is the interface method. So it will be loading the user from right now. But right now it will be loading the user from where? Where inside which class? In memory. So where we are storing the data right now? In the in memory? Users. Yeah. That's the map, right? Look at this. It is doing that. This dot user of get. Okay. So whatever username you are providing over here, one second. Where is that? Whatever data you are providing over here, Spring Security internally is using the load user by username method. This method. Okay, and is calling the get method, right? Users.get. Yeah. Users is what? Users is a map. Map.get of your name it is giving, and that's it. And that's how we are getting the user and checking whether the password is matching. If yes, then it is letting you to log in. Okay, one second, guys. I'll just connect my charger. My charger is not here. Okay, so I have to wrap up, guys. My charger is not here right now with me. Let me just stop the recording first. One second. Okay, just ask me a question, Rakesh. Ask me a question quickly.
Yeah, so like we have LDAP and we have in memory and JDBC, we have auth and all the other things. So in real time, which type of authentication do you really use in our project?
LDAP and JDBC are most frequently used. Auth is also used. Auth is a different concept, by the way. LDAP is a go-to approach for most of the companies, and the JDBC. JDBC is used in real time like crazy. Most of the application that I've used, it followed the JDBC, rest of the things LDAP, and now Auth is a trend. Auth is also
Yeah, and how about the JWT?
JWT is an entirely different concept. JWT and Auth is different type of authentication, right? Here we are not storing our data right here. Here, see, I'm creating some data, right? I'm creating some user related information. Let's say somebody is trying to logging in, giving the details where I'm storing this data. Or let's say if somebody is trying to registering by giving the email, password, and all this glory data. Once he does register, we are storing his data in our database, isn't it, Rakesh? So we are storing their data in our database, or in our in-memory, in our server memory, or inside a file system. So we, as a developer, we are storing it, right? So Auth, or if you're going with like this feature,
if you're going to go over here, and if I'm trying to do a login, but I'm trying to do a login, but here I'm trying to do a login with Google using the Google ID. So if I'm doing this, I have no responsibility of this user, how he is getting logged in. In my database, I'm not storing his data. I'm just redirecting to Google and checking whether he has a Google account, and using his account, you have given permission to my application so that I can access your username and your email. And accordingly, I've logged you in and stored only those information in your database. So the logging responsibility in the oath, this is the oath thing. I'm giving it to Google or Facebook or LinkedIn, so that you can log in by log in via LinkedIn. You can log in via Google and all those sort of things, right? So that is a different thing. So for now, we can only focus on the in-memory and the LDAP thing or the JDBC thing in future. And I'll be telling you more about this this oath and JWT in end of our Spring Security course. It's another bunch of 10-20 sessions we're going to be having on this. In our current JWT course, also you can find around 30 hours of content. Right now, we can have like around 40-50 hours of content if you're interested. We'll also cover the microservices scenario. Okay, security is huge, guys. You have to learn it. You have to make sure that you are learning it really. Yeah.
So Vilas, like in interview, if they ask that what kind of security you have used in your project, so we can say that we use JDBC security.
Yeah, absolutely, Rakesh. What's wrong in that? You have used JDBC security. We are storing all our data inside our database. But JWT is also something people will be expecting from you. So learn that as well. Okay, but this thing is fine. The JDBC thing is fine. Okay, that's not a problem.
Okay. And regarding this LDAP, so it's the remote server, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes. LDAP is not coming by default. For that, we have to add some dependency. We're going to be seeing that how it will work in the future lesson. For that, we have to add one more jar or one more dependency, map and dependency to our project. It is not coming by default. Guys, what is happening here? So let's wrap up. Okay, let's wrap up today. But I don't want to lose this recording. Okay, guys.
Put it in hibernate, and next time I think
maybe I'm stopping the call, guys, right now, and I'll be uploading your recording tomorrow. We have a session. Do join. Santosh, Zoom recording. Yeah, Zoom recording is here, but this clarity is good, no? Santosh. So yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, you guys drop off. I'll see you guys. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Bye bye. Bye everyone.